Hong Kong suffers the biggest ever population drop as exodus accelerates. The pandemic emptied one of the world's busiest airports in January. CNN Hong Kong. Hong Kong has recorded its sharpest annual drop in population, with experts blaming the decline on the strict COVID control measures and the political crackdown that had taken the shine of the financial hub, long advertised as Asia's world city. The city's total population fell from 7.41 million people to 7.29 billion, a 1.6% decrease. The Census and Statistics Department said Thursday. That's the steepest decline since the government began tracking figures in 1961, though authorities attributed some of that to the natural decrease, more deaths than births. Experts said the figures also reflects the exodus that has accelerated in the past few years amid periods of massive social upheaval that had included anti-government protests and the coronavirus pandemic. Around 113,200 residents left Hong Kong over the past year, department said, compared to the 89,200 the year before. The figures include the expatriate and other non-permanent residents. Throughout the pandemic, experts and industry leaders have warned that the city's heavy-handed COVID-19 restrictions would drive away residents, travelers, and expatriates. Even as the rest of the world opened up for months, Hong Kong continues to close borders, suspend air routes, and impose mandatory quarantines and social distancing measures such as caps on public gatherings and limits on restaurant services. Mask mandates remain in effect, while public spaces like beaches and gyms have faced long closures during periods of high case numbers. The measures have devastated businesses, with some of Hong Kong's most famous sites, including the Jumbo Kingdom floating restaurant, shuttering in the past year. The more than 2.5 years of COVID 19 restrictions are taking a heavy toll on businesses and the economy. The Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce said in a statement this month. The group's CEO George Long added that the Hong Kong's border closures were stifling any prospect of economic recovery and argued the authorities to come up with a concrete timetable to reopen Hong Kong. The government has conceded the impact of its police policies, saying on Thursday that the flight restrictions, such as requiring all arrivals to be vaccinated, test negative for COVID, and pay for quarantine in the hotel upon arrival, had interrupted population inflow. People wearing face masks walking in Hong Kong on July 12th. This week, the government eases the quarantine requirement, lowering the number of days arrivals must stay in a designated hotel from 7 to 3. The government says some Hong Kongers may have chosen to settle elsewhere during the pandemic. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong residents who had left Hong Kong before the pandemic may have chosen to reside in reside in other places temporarily or were unable to return to Hong Kong. All these factors may have contributed to the net outflow of Hong Kong residents during the period, said the government spokesperson. But the government downplayed the population drop and seems to suggest that Hong Kong was still a bustling finance hub. Being an international city, Hong Kong's population has always been mobile, said the spokesperson. During the past 10 years, net outflows of Hong Kong residents were recorded for most of the world's years. The spokesperson added that the problem of COVID-driven departures could be resolved when the quarantine and the social distancing measures relaxed, and that the numbers would rise due to the government effort to attract overseas talent. Political crackdown. COVID aside, experts say another factor behind the exodus is Beijing's political crackdown on the city. After Hong Kong's 2019 pro democracy anti government protest, Beijing imposed the sweeping national security law under which the government has all but wiped out former opposition. Authorities have raided and closed down newsrooms, jailed activists and protesters, unseated elected lawmakers, heightened, heightened censorship both online and in printed publications, and changed social curricula. Since the law was introduced, many former protesters and lawmakers have fled overseas, fearing prosecution. Many individuals and families have told CNN they too are considering leaving because they feel the city has been transformed beyond recognition. In the aftermath of the protest, a number of countries, including the United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada, opened new visa pathways for Hong Kongers looking to leave. Many former protesters and activists have also fled to the self-governing democratic island of Taiwan. The government has repeatedly defended the security law as restoring law and order to the city, claiming that the Hong Kong's freedoms of speech, press, and assembly remain intact. The security law has repeatedly and effectively restored stability and security, the government said on July 29th, adding that residents are relieved and happy to see that Hong Kong now continues to be an open, safe, vibrant, and business friendly metropolis.